for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
And a pleasant good evening to you and yours, and welcome into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network on this 18th day of June 2018. Hope you, if you are a father, had a very good Father's Day out there, along with Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes, the fatherless Will Pelagic, but
I'm sure your dad is going to be really happy to hear that.
I'm not fatherless. I just happen to be childless.
There
I guess you could say would be the better way to put that. And my dad is the reason why I got into this business, so he will be very happy to know.
I hope Mr. Pelagic wasn't tuned into his Twitter feed just then.
That faux pas certainly will be caught by everyone.
Off to a great start. That's what happens when you spend the weekend in Myrtle Beach. You know, you come back and the brain just doesn't function.
You know, it wasn't functioning much during the weekend either. So for that perspective, but certainly it was functioning about as well as Dustin Johnson's putting was. That's a hell of a segue. That's a hell of a segue because his childhood buddy Brooks Koepka goes and wins the U.S. Open for the second consecutive year, becoming the first person since Curtis Strange to do so. Phil Mickelson makes what many believe to be a behind of himself, but to me, in my mind, I thought it was a fantastic move by him. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about a new addition at Williams-Brice, the CAA tournament on the move. And we're going to talk to Coastal Carolina football coach Joe Muglia in our second hour, and a lot of recruiting also to get to here at the beginning of the hour, or at least the end of the hour as well. But let's talk about the Open to start, Corn. And as far as Brooks Koepka is concerned, an impressive weekend, but obviously for some reason we think about what happened with the war of attrition from the golfers as well.
Oh yeah. It was a total beatdown. Well, I mean, Sunday they took pity on the golfers and the weather improved and they softened up the greens and they could go at the pin placements and all that. You know, I said earlier in the week that I was looking forward to watching these guys take it upside the head. I didn't mean to get hit by a howitzer. I thought maybe just a broomstick, just something, you know, 1 under, 2 under. My goodness, what a brutal tournament it was. And then, you know, I think what Mickelson did was just protest.
Right.
I think it was just his personal way of saying, screw this and screw the USGA. And especially on Saturday when they had it set up so tough, combined with the weather. You know, Phil Mickelson is a guy that adheres to all the different parts of golf in terms of the rules and the etiquette. And I mean, he respects the game like all those guys do. And he's a champion. He respects it. And he knows what's right and what's wrong. I mean, that was that's one of those things you do when you're playing by yourself, you know, and you're trying to break 90. You know, you run after a putt before it rolls off the green and hit it back toward the hole.
I didn't understand all the outrage for it. And from that perspective, I think also the people who were complaining about that don't have rounds like you and I have where, you know, we're just frustrated and you use the hand wedge sometimes if you shank one left and try and at least get your round over with. You know, in my mind, you know, it just to me stands to reason that there is a lot of uppityness that comes with golf. And in my mind, part of the reason why golf is struggling to connect with, I think, the common fan, sans, of course, a big Tiger weekend or a Tiger run, as it were.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of it, quite frankly. Didn't we see the M&M man do the same thing in Charlotte when the greens were so soft that he complained he held his club like a croquet mallet and hit the ball as it was rolling.
The M&M, you mean you talk about John Daly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that did happen. I believe '99. I think.
Oh yeah. They mentioned that. Yeah.
But I will say that there was an official from the USGA that was on Fox after that round on Saturday and admitted that they didn't account for that win and they made a mistake. They made the course a little bit too tough.
Well, I almost feel like they almost overcorrected it on Sunday because you saw the low numbers like from Tommy Fleetwood, whose 63 was almost a 62, and when it really put the pressure on Koepka down the stretch and those who were trying to hold that lead, which, again, ended up +1. But, you know, in my mind, guys, there needs to be some accountability from the USGA. This is 2 times now that this course has basically failed to, I guess, adhere to the standards of what we would call exciting golf, or at least compelling golf. It's going to be back there in 8 years because they've already signed the papers to be able to do so. I love this course just because I love the venue, and I love, Eastern Long Island getting a showcase. But in my mind, how in your right mind can you come back to this course again after it has embarrassed itself the last 2 times you've been there?
Well, last year they had such a big scores under par
at Erin Hills.
Exactly. And, they wanted to go the other direction, and they obviously went over the top to some degree. I mean, you don't want to make it so tough combined with the elements where quality shots are not rewarded. That's when you have a problem. And I think that was on Thursday, Friday, you had a lot of quality shots that did not get the result that they should have because of the way it was set up. So, but that's the U.S. Open. I like it when they make it tough. Maybe it was a little bit screwed on too tight this time. And here's the other thing they got to do. My goodness, can we just take the broadcast away from Fox?
You don't like it?
Oh, I haven't liked it since day one. They were horrible at day one of doing it a few years ago. I mean, they were pathetic. And it's only, I'm not even sure it's gotten any better. And I'll just tell you why. I mean,
you hate the wide shots.
They miss too many shots.
Yes.
Right? I mean, they want to show you a putter on the green walking around and setting up his putt, and they'll stay on him for a minute. All the while, there's 5 or 6 important shots taking place back behind him. You watch the Masters coverage. It is CBS's bango, bango, bango shot. Well, that's what makes for exciting golf.
Well, the only problem with the Masters coverage is they only show you how many hours in a weekend, because they limit the coverage because they want to make sure that there's the exclusiveness for the fans who are attending.
They still have coverage every day of the week. They've expanded quite a bit. I mean, they used to only show you the back 9.
Still could give you
now
more.
They should. But my point is that the CBS production and the director,
of course,
they take you to the shots as they are happening. Too much of Fox's stuff is this just happened a few moments ago, not live. They just miss so much live action and miss so many shots that pertain to the result of for example, when they were finishing up on 18, Koepka was, of course, in the group ahead. He wasn't in the final group, but back behind him,
Tony Finau.
Yeah, it would take a miracle, but he could have had a shot or two coming down that could have put him in position to make a run.
Right.
You never saw what he was doing until they spent so much time showing what was happening on the 18th green, and I think it bogs down the telecast. Golf can be exciting if you have it moving and showing shot after shot after shot instead of kind of a stationary feeling when you focus in on one golfer or one little piece of the action.
800-956-7266. We'll take your phone calls on this. Also, we're going to talk to Mark Kingston, his season closing interview with us on the South Carolina baseball season. He'll join us at 6:30. You had a thought?
I was about to say, for every negative, there's a positive. And what that staying on a golfer did for me was to watch Johnson talk himself out of putts by standing there. I was looking at him,
he was inside his own head.
Can I do this? Well, and he'd go and he'd line up and then he'd step back again. So that part of it, I kind of can see where a golfer, even though very exceptionally talented, can talk themselves out of putts. And how many putts did we see guys short putt? They had no pace on the ball, and it just stopped a foot or two in front of the hole.
I don't have a brother. I have a sister.
Or a dad, apparently.
I do. But the fact of the matter is, they would talk about this in the broadcast, the thought of his brother being the caddy. I mean, I don't know if that is a good thing. I mean, can that maybe even turn adversarial at times?
Oh, no. Because you've heard George talk about Austin many times on our show. And, I mean,
they were talking about that a little bit on the psychological part of that on the broadcast.
See, that's part of the problem with Fox. They only cover golf 3 or 4 times a year.
Those guys are well,
no,
like
they're not.
Zinger and Curtis Strange, those are knowledgeable guys.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't work the tour every week like the guys at NBC and the guys at CBS do. I mean, NBC with the Golf Channel is there every week, and they know all the ins and outs. And I mean, I don't claim to know the ins and outs of the brotherly relationship between the two, but I've read the stories, and Austin himself was a great athlete growing up, and there's never been a hint of any kind of an issue. They have always worked well together, and anybody to bring up that or suggest otherwise, I don't think is clued in as to what they're doing.
Do you like what Phil did? Do you thought it was okay, or do you identify with the folks who are uppity and say that it was bad? We'll continue to talk here on Sports Talk on a Monday, South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Was reading my state newspaper this morning as I was recovering from my Myrtle Beach hangover, Corn, and I noticed this from our friend Josh Kendall, that apparently they're going to add a concession stand on the east side of Williams-Brice Stadium, per Ray Tanner, to get rid of some of the commotion that took place on the east side as far as concessions. And the other part of that was that they are going to at least try and maybe bring some sort of fan amenity thing to that north part of the stadium where the football offices currently sit and where they will now be vacated at the completion of the new football building.
Yeah, I think that concessions, sure, they need more of that, and sounds like they're trying to alleviate the long lines and stuff like that. The other part about what's now the Floyd building, which is from what coaches have told me in the past, not the current staff, because I don't know it from them, but previous coaches who've come through there that I've talked to. And I mean, that building goes back to the days of Brad Scott, grossly inadequate for what they need and the operation of the football program. I tell you, South Carolina football, with their new football ops building and everything located over there and centralized, that is going to be such a bonus.
I mean, think about what it's done for Clemson.
I go back to the days, I go back to the days when the football players used to have to ride buses from the Roost on campus. That's where they stayed.
Wow.
To the stadium, get off the buses, go in and locker, then get back on the buses, go back to the practice fields, which were over behind the Roost, and then repeat that trip. Imagine how inconvenient that was. I can imagine the Floyd building, and it's a pretty structure, and it's I think it's 4 floors tall.
Yeah.
I could see it becoming some sort of luxury suites. I could see it becoming some sort of maybe a recruiting lounge.
This is what I'd like to see.
All kind of, there's all kind of things you can do with it if you reorganize the space properly.
Well, I know what they might want to try to do. They might want to try to make it exclusive. I'd almost try to make it more of an inclusive, like kind of sports bar-y restaurant type thing. That's also open.
You know what else it wouldn't be?
I'm saying that's open outside of game time.
It might not be a bad place to use as a museum.
Also, could be a part of that.
Open it up for
like
game days, or
like a Hall of Fame.
You know what? You could open it up for every day of the week, because it's right up against George Rogers Boulevard, so it's convenient for parking. Of course, you got the big wall there, but you can work that out. But I mean, the bottom floor could be turned into, I don't know what the space situation is. I don't know. Maybe it's not big enough to do that kind of stuff.
South Carolina Gamecock Hall of Fame Museum. You can put all the the Outback Bowl trophies there. Sorry, that was snide.
Are you making fun of their Outback Bowl trophies?
That was snide. That was very snide.
That's really not called for, because
they
work very hard and they're very proud of their Outback Bowl trophies. They've got
very snide.
Let me count. They've got 1, 2, 3.
Oh, they have 3 of them.
Well, back to back over Ohio State, and then Michigan.
Back to back over Michigan.
No, back to back over Ohio State. They got 4 of them. That's right, and twice over Michigan.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
They own the Outback Bowl.
I'll say. They might as well rename that the Gamecock Bowl.
Why not?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the lounge, because let's face it, some of these recruits, they not only bring their parents, they bring grandparents.
Well, I think that's what they're trying to do over at the football building.
And they're not going to stand on that sideline for a long.
Some of the recruits bring their kids. They got a place to drop off the kids.
Drop off the kids. Yeah.
You're worse than me. You're worse than me.
You don't think some of them have kids?
I know they do.
Have extended.
Have daycare. Have some daycare in there.
Well, again, I think it should be something that you could use outside of the auspices of the 7 weekends of the year. That's why I'm thinking you turn that into something that fans can attend, recruits can go through. Like I said, maybe do a restaurant type thing. I mean, that would be the kind of thing where you are trying to
think a restaurant, wouldn't you?
You know, it really is.
Shut up.
It really is nice upstairs. You go up to the head coach's office, which opens up to a deck area that overlooks. That would be a very, if you could turn that into a restaurant, that's not a bad idea.
You know, I'm not certainly a bad person when it comes to being an idea, man. I'm not giving these ideas free for Ray Tanner. Call it the cockpit. There you go.
Yeah, well, that was,
I know.
How about Touchdown Carolina? Touchdown, Carolina.
I'm just thinking of
the Garnet Zone.
I'm just thinking of some things you're going to have to cut out, because if you have that thing, a restaurant up there, you have to cut out those fireworks behind it.
That's true.
I'm not.
What's wrong with that?
Well, you're sitting there and you're relaxing or whatever, and you're talking with people, and then this stuff comes firing off behind you.
You call it Ray Tanner's place?
You call it Tanner's.
You can say, how about Chomp with Champ? Chomp like chomp on food and champ.
And then what happens?
Chomp with Champ.
What happens after he replaces Tom Herman at Texas? I'm sorry, that was too much.
Boy, you are really.
I am.
You know,
I got a lot of
out of the loop.
I got
as soon as he gets replaced at Texas.
I got.
Must Champ. I'm going to tell you right now.
I know he's here for the long
45. Yeah, he's not going.
He's here for the long. I'm a little salty right now. 800-956-7266.
You didn't take a shower after getting out of the ocean?
I didn't.
Let's go to. He had too much sun.
Let's go to Tiger Bryan, who's calling us from.
He says he got a suntan. Can you believe it? He thinks that's a suntan.
It's a little bit. I'm
a
brown as a berry. I'm not burnt. Tiger Bryan, what's up? How's things in Lancaster?
Hey, man, it's great, man. I'm in the pool. I got a suntan too, man.
Now, Tiger Bryan, you sound like somebody who really gets a good suntan.
Well, I do. I'm retired now. I told you, hey, but you call that the chicken coop?
The chicken coop.
Because Tiger's gonna be in there eating some chicken. You know what I mean? I'm all fun and games today. Hey,
I can tell.
This guy was talking about Arkansas was gonna, fold on Carolina in baseball, because I think they just hit another home run. You know what I mean? I thought that was Vanderbilt. I thought that was Vanderbilt playing South Carolina the way they beat us.
They look good. They look very, very good.
Yeah, Arkansas, it looks like the most powerful team out there right now with the pitching and the offense they've got going. Shoot, they look awfully good. Oregon State is leading Washington 5-4. They're in a delay, right?
They're in a sunshine delay, yes.
In the 6th. I was shocked. We were talking about this off the air.
It's not a sunshine. No. It's a lightning delay, but there's no rain.
Oh, okay.
I call it a sunshine.
Luke, I would have a heat delay in down there at Columbia. It's been about 98 up here.
It's going to be 100 the next 4 days.
It's all right. Bring it on, because the hotter it gets here, the quicker the Yankees go back up north.
Easy.
Luke Heimlich the other day, man, that's got to be – I'd have to go back and look at his history. I got to believe that was the worst outing of his college career. 6 earned runs he gave up in like four-plus innings. Nobody hits that guy like that.
And the thing about it is, too, you wonder, again, how much of I'd hate to say sideshow, but just the ancillary distraction of his presence on the team. I wonder how much of that he bears the brunt of a little bit.
I don't know. I didn't see a single – now, I haven't looked very closely. Did you see a single story about his issues come out of Omaha? Or his issue?
Well,
I think it's because they know they're not going to talk about it.
Let's go to the natural thing. I thought Oregon State, as the game went on, got hit by that heat.
True.
They don't have that heat in Corvallis.
How surprised were you at Texas Tech beating Florida? We have to ask Mike Morgan about that when he joins us on Thursday.
Yeah.
That group out of Lubbock is one win away from possibly getting themselves to a potential winners bracket game to get them to the final.
Can I put Florida on the psychiatric couch?
Sure.
Because seeing some of the shots in their locker room, I thought they were too anxious. I thought they were ticked off that they had that long delay, and I thought they brought it on the field.
I thought they looked kind of blasé. Exactly. I didn't see a lot of energy coming out of their dugout. And
you think there's maybe
Mississippi State is this Mississippi State North Carolina game tonight should be a dandy.
Yes.
Mississippi State seems to always find a way to come up off the turf if they're knocked down.
If they ever start the game.
Yeah. They'll wait. That's they got nowhere to go in Omaha. Hey, you know who's in Omaha right now?
I'd be at the Drover already. That's where I would.
I'm sure you would be.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it in recruiting, but USC basketball target AJ Lawson is in Omaha.
Get out.
Visiting Creighton.
That's right.
Well, I thought he was visiting Ray Tanner, who was there.
Well, they could make a side trip if they wanted to.
If you can't tell by the first half hour the way the show is going, it's late June. That's the way
it's going down fast.
That's the way it is. But these are the reasons we do radio. We're going to talk to Mark Kingston, South Carolina baseball coach, next, and get his thoughts on the conclusion of 2018 and look ahead to next year from him next on Sports Talk. Monday edition of Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We are pleased to be joined now by the South Carolina baseball coach, Mark Kingston. And Phil, I know that things are going to look largely different for Mark Kingston's club, but they can certainly be proud of what the foundation was that they built this first year under Kingston's tenure. No question about it. You'll have to buy a program to be able to identify the Gamecocks in 2019 with all the new faces, but there'll be enough veterans returning to help guide the way as we welcome Coach Kingston into Sports Talk tonight, maybe getting a break from summer camp. A little hot out there today, huh?
It's very hot, but that's part of the deal being in Columbia, being in the South. You know it's going to be hot during the summer, so that's okay. Absolutely,
absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And just to recap and reflect on the season past and the run you guys made to the Super Regional and getting to within a game of Omaha. When you think back on it, what memories do you take from this season?
Well, it's hard to point to just one. Obviously, so many things went on, good, bad, ugly, everything in between. So the things I'll take from this season, number one, are just the relationships that I was able to make, first with our players. There's some players that I coached this year that will go in that category of some of my favorite players that I've ever had a chance to coach. So that would be number one. Number two, I think we take a lot of pride in the fact that I think we're starting to build what we want this program to be moving into the future. And we're doing that by borrowing a lot from what this program has been in the past in terms of the toughness and the work ethic and, that Carolina attitude that you have to take the field with every day. So I'll look back on this season very fondly. The lows we hit made us appreciate the highs that much more. So this was I think a very influential season moving into the future, and I think we'll be able to build off this foundation.
Yeah, people like to say a team takes on the personality of its coach. Do you think in your 1 year you were able to establish through your own personality a personality for your program moving forward?
Well, I mean, that's hard to say because I'd have to have other people define, what they think my personality is. At the end of the day, I do think I'm very competitive and I hate to lose and we do everything to try to win. And I do think our team did become that as the season went on. I think we became a team that hated to lose and would make the sacrifices and the commitments that it needed to make sure that we didn't do that very often. And I think we did become very competitive. I think at the end of the day, I think we became the kind of program that I want representing us. We did compete. We played very hard. We played a very smart brand of baseball on most days, and we didn't beat ourselves. So, I hope that that's how people would look at me, and that's definitely how I look at our team when the season was all said and done.
Head coach Mark Kingston joining us here on Sports Talk. I don't mean to sound flippant when I ask this question, but are you investing in name tags heavily for next year?
No, that'll be for the media to try to figure out who decides the numbers and the rosters. We'll be well aware of who every player on our team is next year. But to your point, there definitely will be a good amount of turnover. A lot of guys moving on either to graduation or into pro baseball. So that's just part of it. Next year will be another challenge, probably different than this year's challenge. This year's challenge was taking over a new program and having to figure out everything within and outside of the program. Next year's challenge will be a very, very new roster. So every year has its own challenges, and you just have to attack them and try to figure out how to make it work.
What differently do you do to handle that?
Handle a new roster?
Yes. Just a new roster with such turnover like this.
Well, I mean, you're going to have to. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that don't know what we expect and how we run things. So, from that standpoint, this year's team, I had to do that with 35 different guys and teach them what was expected and how we run things and what our practice looks like and how we get on the bus. There's a lot of things that go into that. Next year, we'll have to do the same thing, but maybe with half the number. We'll probably have, I would guess, probably 20 new guys on next year's roster going into the fall. So to me, it's just going to be a matter of you have to attack that and teach everybody how it should be done, just not quite as many people as this previous year.
Well, one of you guys you have returning is T.J. Hopkins, a guy you could have used down the stretch maybe, especially as you got into the postseason. But is he looking at anything as far as with the training staff, exercise, diet, anything he can do for as a preventive measure to having a recurring back problem?
Well, he'll do nothing different, than he's done in the past. He's had some flukish injuries this year. The hand injury was flukish. They kept him out for 5 weeks. You hope that never happens again where he gets hit on the hand. The back will be just a matter of the rehab with our athletic trainers. He'll be in the weight room with our strength coach, Billy Anderson. And, you try to protect that stuff as much as possible. It's a combination of strength and flexibility. And then you hope you're due for a healthy season with TJ. He deserves it. He deserves to have a really good season going out. My goals for him, obviously, are he goes out the same way Jonah Bride and Madison Stokes and Hunter Taylor and those guys did as seniors, that they had their best years, and my hope is that TJ has his best year next year.
Coach Mark Kingston, USC Baseball, with us here on Sports Talk. Let's take care of a couple of other bits of personnel business. Been reports of a couple of your young guys transferring out, Kyle Jacobson and Elijah Bowers. Can you confirm their departures?
Yes, I can. The big thing with guys at this point in the season, this is going on throughout college baseball, is players go to college, especially at the top level programs, to play, to develop, and become professional prospects. And when they don't see playing time in their future, sometimes they come in and say they want to find a better option to be starting players. And so, we support that with Hopkins coming back, with Olsen coming back, with Noah Campbell potentially being in the outfield, and also some pretty high-level recruits coming in. Sometimes guys just feel like they want a clear path to playing time. So that's what you're seeing. If players are leaving our program at this point, that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, you never know. I want to ask you about Jacobson in particular, because he was such a highly touted guy coming in. He turned down, I guess, X amount of money from the draft to come to college, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. What do you say, or what do you say to him, or what do you say to your staff in a situation like that where a highly prized guy doesn't work out and decides to go somewhere else?
Well, you just have to wish the young man the best of luck. Hope that he learns from the experience that he had here, and takes advantage of his next opportunity. At the end of the day, that's really all you can say.
Are you in position to be able to comment about two junior college guys who announced on Twitter that they are coming? I mean, are they signed up where you can talk about them yet?
No, I cannot talk about those guys yet.
Okay, very good. What about working on your schedule for 2019? Anything with that you can share with us as far as maybe some new teams or any particular special games outside of Clemson SEC play?
No, you're going to see, pretty similar to what you've seen in the past. The 10 SEC weekends, in addition to the Clemson weekend, that's 11 weekends right there out of the 14 you get that are as challenging as it gets. I think with our schedule, you don't expect to see anything out of the ordinary. And these schedules, for the most part, have been done 2, 3, and 4 years ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So we haven't had a chance yet to really make that many changes to the schedules that are already in place and contracts signed. So, you can expect pretty much a status quo schedule from what you've seen in the past. I will tell you the SEC schedule, next year's schedule, LSU, Ole Miss, and Arkansas come off our schedule next year. So you'll see Alabama go on, you'll see Auburn go on, and then there's one more team that we didn't play this year that would go on as well. So every year there's a rotation, but LSU, Arkansas, and Ole Miss come off next year.
That sounds like a good thing.
Well, I won't comment one way or another. They're all tough, so that's my official statement.
Will the middle game of the Clemson series, Coach, still be in Greenville?
I think they're talking about that still. That's some of those decisions are being made even above the head coaches. So I think that's something they're continuing to evaluate. And I don't think they're ready to announce exactly who the host site will be for the neutral game.
Thank you so much for the time, Coach. Wish you the best of luck this summer, and we'll talk to you soon down the road.
All right, thanks, guys.
That's Mark Kingston. So no LSU, no Arkansas, no Ole Miss. He says he adds Alabama and what was the other
Auburn?
one? Auburn.
And one other will be added. Interesting. Yeah, I think that's good news for USC baseball. Those are 9 tough games.
Those two would be dangerous.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
A couple of interesting nuggets here on Sports Talk from Mark Kingston. No LSU, no Arkansas, no Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, and one other unnamed team. I'm sure we could figure out the unnamed team.
Texas A&M and College Station.
No, that's the team they already played, though. They already played A&M. What would be the team that they didn't play? What would be the other team? They have 10 SEC weekends. They didn't play 4 teams. So that would mean that.
Did they play Mississippi State? I can't remember.
I think they did. I want to say
no, they did not play Mississippi State this year.
So there's that team, and then there's between them and who would be the other team that they didn't play.
From this past season, they did not play Auburn.
Well, I'm saying Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, and they'd be so Mississippi State would be the unnamed team.
That would be look, they played 10, right?
Yes.
Okay,
and they would be 11.
They'd be 11. So that's 3.
Yes.
So the 3 they didn't play were Mississippi State, Alabama, and Auburn.
So
this past season, right? They did not play Auburn in the regular season.
No.
Did they? No. So
there you go.
That's it.
The neutral site game is interesting because that's kind of a discussion we've had over the course of the last couple of months since we knew that the contract with Greenville was up. The fact that that's not finalized and not set in stone, I would say, is curious.
Not ordinarily. I think that they don't rush that thing. They've got time. I mean, they don't play again until next March, so they don't have to rush it. And what they're trying to do is between South Carolina and Clemson, ratchet up the asking price and get some people bidding against each other,
right?
And see what's going to be the best situation. Then they have to figure out, okay, how's this going to work logistically? Because you got to make sure it's an easy travel situation for both teams. So I would imagine sometime by the end of the summer, maybe by the time fall practice begins, we might have an idea where it's going to go.
Should be interesting,
I would think.
How strong a player do you think North Augusta's in that?
I mean, I don't know,
because I
don't know how interested they are.
That's an easy destination for both schools.
Yeah, wouldn't be bad.
Wouldn't be bad. You have a boatload of recruiting, as it were.
Yes, indeed I do, because it was a busy weekend with visits, end of camps, and things of that nature. As the June recruiting month, it's been pretty good. I complained about the new rules, as I do most everything that's new.
You poo-poo basically anything that's not the way it was 30 years ago.
Exactly. Because it was good then, it would be good now. But this hadn't been too bad. Kind of everybody now using June as the big targeted recruiting month for some official visits, camps, of course, evaluations, and a lot of decisions. So let's update you on what we've got from over the weekend and through today. Defensive back Jamie Robinson of Cordele, Georgia, was back at USC overnight Friday and Saturday. Left on Saturday. He's a frequent visitor to USC. And 2 weeks ago, he was in for his official visit. This visit, of course, I'm not going to, when it comes to these visits, they all go well. Okay, I can tell you, I should throw out there that I've talked to multiple sources, and they all say it was a fabulous visit. The kids never had a better time, and the red carpet was rolled out. But I won't lie to you like that. I'll just tell you that they hardly ever have a bad visit unless they do something wrong and get in trouble. So he now has a Final Four of USC, Georgia, Auburn, and Michigan, and USC has been among his favorites for a long, long time. He said the visit did help out USC a little more. Now, coming up, he plans a return visit to Georgia this weekend and plans to get to Auburn over the weekend. A dead period is coming up. I believe it starts June 26th. So guys are trying to get some final visits in before it goes dead for about a month. And he wants to visit Michigan at some point as well. And he hopes to have a decision by his season. Defensive back Johnny Dixon of Tampa was in as well. His visit official, and he too has made many visits to USC and has a good relationship with the Gamecocks. And he spent a lot of time with J.C. Horn, who was his player host. Said what impressed him the most was the nutrition. He likes how they serve healthy meals, and they make sure you like it. His Final Five: USC, Penn State, Miami, Alabama, Ohio State. He's in no rush because he's not signing early. He's got Penn State late September for an official. Might squeeze in this summer a visit to Miami, if not during the season. But he says he's always liked South Carolina. Receiver Kevion Mullins of Memphis, former Memphis Tiger commitment, now calls USC his favorite, with the Tigers second on his list. He also has Georgia and Louisville in his top 4. He was at Louisville Friday. He was at USC for a camp last week, and he really liked it at South Carolina. He likes the fact that the receivers coach is also the offensive coordinator, and he said that Brian McClendon likes him a lot as well. They like that he's a big guy, a big receiver, nice body, and can go out and get the football. So he's really down to South Carolina and Memphis. He plans to announce next week at a Rivals camp, which runs June 27th through the 28th. And South Carolina appears to be in really good shape. He said USC leads, and it's pretty big. And he talks to Ryan Holinsky a lot. He's in his ear. 52 catches last year, 2,011 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Defensive lineman Jaquez Sorrells of Largo, Florida, camped at USC last week. He told the Big Spur the Gamecocks lead for him. He plans to announce his commitment decision August 27th, if not sooner. Clemson, Michigan, Florida, Florida State, and others have offered him. Clemson made the cut of 15 with defensive end David Ohabo of Blairstown, New Jersey. Some of the others are Nebraska, Notre Dame, Michigan, and Ohio State. Clemson and USC in the top 7 with offensive lineman Ja'Kai Moore, who camped at USC recently. Miami, Penn State, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina, the others. Defensive end Justin Eboibe of Forest Park, Georgia, committed to Alabama. He had Clemson in his final 5 and also had an offer from USC. 2 offensive linemen Clemson offered made commitment announcements. Zeke Corral to Notre Dame, Xavier Truss to Georgia. Defensive back Jalen Phillips of Lawrenceville, Georgia, has made his decision. He had a final 5 of Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Southern Cal. Was offered by Clemson earlier this month in camp. At this point, he is scheduled to announce on August 20th. USC targets defensive back Jadon Hill, who was in this past weekend, was offered by Florida. He's had USC and Tennessee as his top 2. USC offered a place kicker, Charlie Ham.
Need those kickers.
Of Atlanta. Some other offers for him, Georgia Tech, Arizona, Toledo, UCF. He's ranked number 5 by Cole's professional camps. Greenville quarterback Davis Bevel committed to Pitt. Pitt got 8 commitments over the weekend. Sockasty defensive back receiver Kenny Solomon was offered by UCF after camping there. And let's see, told you about that. Defensive back Cam Smith of Westwood is going to release a top 8 on July 1st. He's had a top 4 of USC, Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. He didn't get the message. The idea is to narrow your list, not expand it.
Right.
But he's expanding.
I have a top 27, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read them all.
Place kicker Ryan Fitzgerald of Moultrie, Georgia, was at USC's kicker camp on Saturday, but did not get an offer, though he did have the longest kickoff at 75 yards. Offensive lineman Dylan Powell of Somerville committed to Western Kentucky. 2020, Tashawn Brooks of Dutch Fork camped at USC Friday. He is 6'4", 275, ran a 4.9 at Wofford's camp, being recruited as an offensive tackle. He was at Auburn Saturday. Oregon State is also showing interest. The NC State website, Inside Pack Sports, reported linebacker running back Quavaris Crouch will visit NC State Wednesday. He was at Michigan Saturday and was at Tennessee last week. Of course, USC and Clemson are in pursuit. USC target defensive end Curtis Fan was at Auburn Saturday. Linebacker Kalen DeLoach, who has USC and Clemson offers, told Bama Online he'll visit there, Alabama, June 22nd for the Champions Cookout. He also said he'll take officials to Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, and Florida State. He went to USC and Clemson for their spring games. Let's see. I'll tell you what, I got some basketball. We'll save the basketball stuff for our next opportunity after we have Coach Mobley on.
Joe Mobley, a Coastal Carolina football coach, just got back from the beach area. We'll talk to him when we come back here, top of the second hour.
Best music compilation.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
And welcome back to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, Hour 2 on a Monday. Will Pelagic, Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes. We're going to talk to the head coach of Coastal Carolina football, Joe Moglia, in a second. You had a recruiting note you wanted to pass along first.
Yeah, Coach Moglia coming up here in just a moment. We just did some football recruiting. We'll give you the rest of it coming up. But Charlie Ham, who we mentioned picking up a USC offer as a kicker over the weekend, has committed to Duke.
Don't be Shanks one. Be a Hamshank.
Hamshank. We obviously worked on that joke during the break.
Yeah.
Didn't quite go across as well as we had in rehearsal.
What? Oh, do you think that didn't go over as well? You didn't have to tell them we worked on it. It was pre-rehearsed.
Let's ask Coach Moglia if he's laughing at our little joke about a Hamshank there. Coach, how are you?
Guys, I'm good, Phil. I think you guys are really a combination of Jay Leno, Johnny Carson, you always have me laughing, so we're in good shape on that one.
That's good.
Well, listen, we're just glad that you're back. I know we talked to you once you were officially introduced back to the job, and but I'm just glad everything's going well. You'll be back on the sideline this football season. How are you feeling? I know you feel fine physically, but I mean, how do you feel about knowing you're just a couple of months away from being back on the sideline, going to be leading your team out of the tunnel here in Columbia against the Gamecocks to open the season? How excited are you internally about the beginning and the restart of your coaching career?
You know what? I think for a coach that literally has been around for a little while, he quite understands it's really all about the process that you wind up going through. So for me, coming back in January was really kind of the exciting part. And when it comes time to our opening day, I will be ready for that. I'll be excited about that. But we have so much work to do between then and now, with our guys getting a little bit of a break right now. And we've worked so hard up until now that when it's time to get ready for the opener against South Carolina, I'll be ready at that moment in time. But not quite yet.
Yeah, you got time. Your spring practice, what were your areas of focus, and did you accomplish all the goals you set out for the team in spring?
I think there were a couple things, guys. I think, first of all, I've got 4 new guys on the staff. And again, remember, everything for us begins and ends with BAM. You take responsibility for yourselves. And if we're going to improve, then the responsibility for that is very much on us. And in order to be able to do that, I think you've got to be able to be far more open and think about things differently. So with regards to that type of attitude and perspective, I couldn't be more pleased with the leadership we have on our staff and the guys on our staff. That translates then over to our guys. And I also think along those lines, if you're going to have a good if you're going to have a good season, yeah, it's critical to have good leadership within the program and within the organization. And the team leadership council that we have, I've always had one of those from frankly the first time around, is really literally the best we've had. And so the leadership within the team has been good. The team itself worked hard in the winter time and the off season after spring practice, and worked hard during spring practice. So I feel pretty good both from a coach's perspective, guys, as well as from a player's perspective in terms of what we've been able to do and what we've been able to accomplish.
Coastal Carolina football coach Joe Moglia joining us. We talked about this with your basketball colleague Cliff Ellis just before the season when we had our pigskin preview in Conway. What do you think is the biggest barrier for your group when making this level change to the Sun Belt Conference over here these couple of years? What do you think is the biggest barrier now for you to get to the point where you are competing on level pegging with the team inside your still somewhat brand new conference?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Tom, I got to ask you, you were having a pigskin conference or preview, and you were interviewing Cliff. Now, I love Cliff, but chances are you should talk to him on the basketball thing. You should probably talk to me on the football thing.
We had Coach Chadwell on as well, talking as well.
Yeah.
That would be more than fair.
Yes.
As far as what we need to do, or like what we've done in terms of getting ready, what is created the program in terms of where we are today and what we've been able to accomplish, the processes and the philosophies we go through. None of those have changed even a little bit. What we need to do from a recruiting perspective, though, is be a little bit more aggressive and make offers to guys earlier. So at the FCS level, we had 63 scholarships. As you guys know, you have to go to 85 scholarships. But it was smarter for us back then to allow some of the FCS. There were plenty of players who had interest and potential to come in our program, but definitely felt they had to go to FBS. So to clear those out was important at that moment in time. Now we are making offers earlier than we had before, but in terms of how we run the program, there have been no changes in that.
Obviously, everybody talks about the conductor of the offense on the field, the quarterback. But as far as your recruiting is concerned, moving up to this level, it seems, Coach, the most difficult people to find are defensive linemen. How difficult is it for you, and how do you edge your focus on finding the guys that you think you can use that defensive line?
Well, I disagree a little bit in the sense that I think it's a little hard to get offensive linemen rather than defensive linemen, because the offensive lineman really has to have a certain wingspan, he's got to have a certain size, et cetera. The defensive lineman needs to be decent size, of course, but he needs to be a good athlete and have pretty good feet. Now, across the board, the biggest disadvantage we have going forward, guys, in terms of where we are right now, again, as you know, everybody at the FBS, everybody we play against is 85 scholarships. Because the NCAA limits us to the number of scholarships that we can have in any one year, we're only going to be at 70. Now, everybody we play against therefore is going to have a 15 scholarship advantage over us. And when you've had an opportunity over 2 to 3 years to hone those 15 scholarships, that's actually a big deal. So for us, that's going to have an impact on us in terms of depth later on in the season. If we get guys banged up, that would be a little bit of an issue. It has an impact on special teams. And rather than look at a specific position, it's the overall lack of scholarships relative to the people that we're going to play that would tend to be our biggest challenge.
Talking with Joe Moglia from Coastal Carolina. So the quarterback position has been kind of a revolving door for you guys last couple of years. How was it coming out of the spring? Have you settled on that one guy?
Well, I think when we were going into 2016, we literally, I don't know. I had dinner with Lou Holtz, and we talked about this. I had dinner with Tom Osborne, and we talked about this. And nobody that I know ever wound up with their seventh-string quarterback starting in a game. That's where we were in 2016. So you just can't turn that around overnight. It winds up taking a little bit of time to be able to get that taken care of. So, based on what we finished last year, and based on what we wound up accomplishing over the span of the spring, Chilton is the guy that finished last season, and he's the guy that deserves the start going into this coming season. But we have some pretty good guys behind him, but they are young kids, and but we feel that Chilton is the guy that deserves the job going forward. What did he show you in the spring? Leadership, number one. He's got a great understanding in terms of what's going on as far as the overall system goes. He's a member of the Team Leadership Council that I referenced earlier, and he's one of the leaders of that. He needs to work on his accuracy, but he's a good athlete. He's a great leader. He understands our offense. And he deserves the opportunity to begin the season as our starter.
Joe Moglia with us from Coastal Carolina. We've got a break coming up. Can we hold you over for just a moment?
Yeah, sure, sir. I'll be glad to.
Thank you, sir. And we'll get back with Coach Moglia for a couple of more questions. I want to ask him about getting ready for South Carolina, what he thinks about the Gamecocks moving forward, and also his thoughts about a bowl game coming to his stadium once it is complete. Well, I guess it's not going to be once it's complete. It's coming.
I love how he just flippantly puts out the fact that, oh, yeah, I had dinner with Lou Holtz. I had dinner with Tom Osborne. He's like the most interesting man in football.
And, of course, we always have to finish our conversation with him with a stock market update. So
I wonder how much of the vino and the Rosso was flowing there with Lou Holtz. And
well, you can – I'm sure he'd be happy to tell you if you ask him.
Sure. Yeah. More with Joe Moglia and Corn's basketball recruiting when we come back as well on Sports Talk.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We're brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Receive double CU rewards points on lodging, travel, and dining purchases from May 15th to July 31st when you use your Founders Visa signature or a Platinum Visa credit card. Visit foundersfcu.com/visa for full details. More with Joe Mowgli.
Indeed, the coach hanging on with us here for a couple of more minutes, and then we'll wrap up the recruiting segment. And thank you, Coach, for waiting for us here. I had a couple of more things to ask you about. Of course, you open up the season here in Columbia against South Carolina. Did not go well for you the last time you came to Columbia with your crowd. Do you feel like, I know you won't feel like you're on an even footing, but I mean, will you feel a little more from a personnel standpoint better prepared this time around for facing the Gamecocks?
No, from our perspective, Phil, I don't think we're going to be any better prepared. We were frankly pretty well prepared last time. The issue last time was we had a pretty good season and we were going to the playoffs. So the following week, if you recall, we didn't get that game scheduled until like halfway through the season. Mm-hmm. So instead of getting a bye week, which we would have had going into the playoffs, we had to play South Carolina, and that South Carolina had the following week off. So, South Carolina was a better team than what we were. That was also one of their best teams ever. They were top 10 team, and they were going to beat us. So I'm not suggesting anything else. But by the second quarter, when we knew we were going to win the game, the number one priority for us was what we were going to do the following week of the playoffs.
Sure.
So with regards to what we're going to do as far as opening day goes, we're not worried about the playoffs. It's opening day. So we're going to be prepared, and we're going to do everything we can as far as the game goes. I've already mentioned to you that we're going to have a 15 scholarship deficit, and from everything I heard, I think that Muschamp feels that he's going to have as good a team as he's ever had. So we know we have our work cut out for us. But relative to the last time, it's kind of apples and oranges.
Sure.
We are, of course, been following this talk about the new Myrtle Beach Bowl that's scheduled to come here in 2020 to the state of South Carolina. Wanted to offer at least your opportunity to expound on what that would mean for your facility to host that.
Well, first of all, I think just the alliteration on Myrtle Beach Bowl sounds pretty cool. Then you've got the ocean thing going on, which is pretty cool. And it'd be something certainly we're going to be very proud of. So our ability to be able to do something like that for our fans, our alumni, our team, our administration, everybody, I think it's certainly something that we'd be very, very proud of. And I would certainly hope it all works out.
How close are you on the construction of your stadium, the renovation, in terms of having much of it ready to go for this season, or is it, how is it going to be a little bit longer before it's all set and ready to go?
Well, now let me preface this by saying I love the state of South Carolina. We good?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Having said that, because we're a state school, so many things have to wind up actually going through the state. By definition, that's not a business, and it takes much, much, much longer. So we were supposed to have a stadium done by last season. It wasn't. We were supposed to have a stadium done by this season. It's not. Mm-hmm. And it will be done at the end of the season. So the stadium will be totally completed by the end for the 2019 season. We're excited about that, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that. It's not going to be quite ready to go. But again, we can't worry about that.
One thing we can worry about, the stock markets. So my every interview session with you, stock market question, with the budding trade war coming up apparently between the United States and China in particular, and maybe some other countries. How do you see that impacting the stock market moving forward?
Well, I think, frankly, Phil, you kind of hit the nail on the head to begin with. There is nothing going on in the world right now that's not getting more buzz and more attention than the possible trade war between us and China and potentially others. There's going to be a 25% tariff on steel and another 10% on aluminum. But there's more going on in the world than just that. But that's the only thing everybody's focused on. So if you take a look at what's going on in energy, so OPEC's got a lot of issues going on. They have very, very big meetings coming up. There might be some issues associated with that. The energy world is a very, very big deal. Nobody's even talking about that. Our economy has done very, very, very well. But relative to other economies of the world, the rest of the world is not doing particularly well. So the Fed had said that they want to increase interest rates, which would be really outstanding for banks. But because of what's going on globally and the threat of a trade war and the issue of what's going on with regard to energy, there's a decent possibility that the Fed backs up and says, you know what, we're not going to tighten as we go forward. If that's the case, what you're going to see is financial services will take a hit. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go down 10, 12, 13%. That would be a buying opportunity. So if that happens, I would look at Morgan Stanley, I look at Bank of America, and definitely somebody in the online brokerage world, which would be, for our purposes, E-Trade, Schwab, and Ameritrade. But I can't recommend Ameritrade because I would go to jail if I did something like that. So that's my perspective.
We don't want you to go to jail. No insider trading tips here.
So we're totally in sync on that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Hey, the College World Series out in Omaha, your old town there is a buzz. And if you were in Omaha at the World Series, where would you be dining tonight?
I would probably be dining in our TD Ameritrade suite, overlooking, watching the game. By the way, I don't know if you guys are aware of this. When I stepped down in 2008 as CEO, one of the last things that I did was I was the one that authorized the naming rights for the stadium.
Look at you.
So to put that in perspective, in 2016, with Coast Carolina winning the national championship, College World Series in Omaha at TD Ameritrade Park, that was a pretty special thing, not just for everybody associated with Coast Carolina, but also personally for me.
Absolutely. Is the Drover your favorite steakhouse in Omaha?
Which one?
The Drover.
The Drover? No, I like the Drover. I've eaten there a number of times. The one I like is a little bit more out of the way. It's Pasta Amore, little Italian restaurant in Rockbrook Plaza. If you ever get there, you should definitely go around to that place, unless you don't like Italian food.
Does Warren hang out there?
No, but he and I have had dinner there a couple of times.
Yeah.
His favorite place is Pete's. Italian place. His favorite place is Pete's.
What was the one place you told me that to go to, the one Italian place?
Up on 10th Street, Cassio's.
Yeah, I went there. And I went to the Drover.
Yeah. You've been to Cassio's, haven't you?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
Frankly, I've not heard of
That's
that.
for us little people.
But
Cassio's is for us little people.
little people?
That's for us little people. Hey, listen, next time I'm in Omaha, I want you to call up Mr. Buffett and suggest that he and I go to dinner just so we can, exchange pleasantries.
You are crossing the line there, big boy.
Too much to ask for, huh?
Yeah, that might be a little much.
Hey, listen, we thank you as always, and we'll see you next month in Greenville at the coaches gathering. And then we'll be talking to you some more in August and seeing you down there on our pigskin tour and on into the season.
I look forward to it, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Joe Moglia joining us here on Sports Talk.
So he can't get Warren Buffett to take me to dinner?
No.
I think he likes Warren Buffett a little too much to do that.
I was laughing at what he said about the stadium because that sounds like Steve Spurrier a year after he got here. How many hoops you have to jump through to the state to get something? I think that was when they were building in the zone.
Well, that's what's it called? Procurement?
Yeah.
Going through the state procurement system slows down everything.
Which includes the budget and control board.
Let me finish recruiting here before we hit the next break. I had a couple of basketball notes. A.J. Lawson, USC target, had 18 and 12 Saturday night for Canada in the loss to USA in the gold medal game of the FIBA Under-18 America's Championship played in St. Catharines. He took an official to USC in late May. According to Zag's blog, he is today at Creighton, going to Tulane on Wednesday for an official, and will also visit Oregon and SMU next week. 6'5" Wendell Moore of Concord, North Carolina, had already set officials to NC State September 1 and USC on the 8th. He told media yesterday at the USA Under-17 trials he'll visit Duke on the 22nd, Wake Forest on the 29th, and he'll set a date with North Carolina. And in baseball, we alluded to this with Mark Kingston. USC got a commitment from outfielder Andrew Eister, Ocala, Florida, played at Santa Fe Junior College in Florida this past season, hit .412, 13 homers, 53 RBIs, 32nd round pick this month, a 27th round pick coming out of high school.
We'll be back. We'll hear from Brooks Koepka after his U.S. Open victory here on Sports Talk. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on this Monday. Still didn't seem like that Myrtle Beach Bowl is 100% like stamped, rubber stamped official. He still seemed like he was talking about it in the hopeful area. I thought it was rubber stamped official that they were getting it, or are they still?
Well, I think who was it? Bruce Feldman,
Brett McMurphy.
Brett McMurphy. Usually they are spot on. And I mean, the NCAA has approved. Right. I think the committee has approved. I don't guess yet that Coastal Carolina or the city of Conway, the city of Myrtle Beach, they haven't formally announced anything down there yet.
No. I was hoping I'd see like a website on there, but if you search Myrtle Beach Bowl, it's
too soon. It's too soon.
It's until
2020.
It's a bowling alley.
Right, they're not playing until 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, what kind of gravy they get? Do they put some sweets in it? What do they do to help them out to get that construction?
Well, they're getting some sweet area stuff, at least from the second phase of their renovations in Conway. So from that perspective, they will at least have more of a luxury feel. But I mean, what in your mind do you think is best for the city of Conway / Myrtle Beach to at least attract a crowd to this particular bowl?
Well, here's what you're going to have.
Because it's going to be possibly a Sun Belt tie-in or maybe a MAC.
Right. I mean, a lot's going to depend on where the teams are located. For example, let's just say, you could have, is it possible that Coastal can play in their own bowl there? Is there any regulation against that, playing in a bowl game in your own stadium?
I think there is. I'm trying to think if Boise State is ever playing in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, because they play that at the Blue Field.
I think Arizona State has played in the bowl game at their back when they used to play the
Sun Devil Stadium.
Yeah, I think they used to play in. I don't know if there's any restriction on that.
I don't think there is.
And that might not be a bad idea to get it underway with Coastal playing at home and bringing in, a team from an opposing league, and as a way to kind of kickstart that thing,
Right.
Unless, then again, if you're Coastal, you're like, well, it's great going to a bowl game, but we'd like to go somewhere.
Right.
We're here all the time. We want to go somewhere. We'll go to Boise in the middle of December. We got no problem with that. So let's just say, take Coastal out of the picture. If you get an Appalachian State, because they have rabid fans, and Georgia Southern the same, if they reach that, or Georgia State, for example.
Boise State has played in the Idaho Potato Bowl, so I'm saying that. So it doesn't preclude.
So I think there's some teams that aren't that far away who would bring nice crowds, and then the team for what other league is involved in this thing? Is it the MAC?
They're saying it could either be the MAC or Conference USA.
Yeah. So
and a lot of Ohio college students, that's where they spend
Ohio gets a lot of tourists down in the Low Country area anyway.
As I said, my best friend used to teach at Ohio University. All their kids would go to Myrtle Beach for spring break.
A lot depends on the date they choose. Have they announced a date?
No.
Yeah, they haven't put on the not even. See, if it's a day or two before Christmas, that's going to hurt getting people in. If it's after Christmas, just depends on where it falls on the bowl calendar.
I'm guessing it probably would fall in the first third, I would say.
Second, but let's go in the vision of 14 through the 20th.
800-956-7266. Let's go to Pal in Great Falls. Pal, you're on Sports Talk. How are you?
Thank you, buddy. I hope y'all having a good evening, staying cool. Will, I want to address your little snide remarks about Carolina's Outback Trophy.
I was only kidding, pal.
Now, wait a minute.
Too late.
Wait, let me say it.
No, go ahead.
Huh?
No, you're good.
All right. All I want to say was, as Carolina, I'm 75 years old. As a Carolina fan, I suffered a long time. And then we had a little bit of success with Lou and then Steve. And one of those bowls.
Yes.
Now, I think that the Outback, there's 26, 28 bowls. So
there's like now 40.
The Outback Bowl is in the 7th, 8th in the nation, would you say?
Something around this. So they're in the top 10.
Yeah, okay.
They're in the top 10.
All right, thank you. But as I said, we're proud. Now,
nothing to be ashamed of, pal.
Well, why did you get snide about it?
I was just.
Were you trying to be funny?
I was. Unfortunately, as we've seen over the course of today, we've had very bad attempts about that today. I was the one who said I was fatherless. I'd said I was fatherless earlier today.
Some of us have a problem.
I got too much sun this weekend, pal. I'm not thinking right.
Well, one other thing, if you don't mind. Like I say, I'm 75 years old, and I'm going to give you some advice. When you get in arguing with Phil over some mundane subject, which y'all argue a lot, your voice gets higher and higher and higher and higher. And why don't you get control of your emotions, son? I'm offering that as, listen, that's constructive criticism, okay?
I have trouble when it comes to obstinance, so and trying to convince Phil to come off of a particular point is like trying to drive a car through a brick wall. So that's basically the brakes of my engine going off there.
I've listened to Phil for 30 years, and him and Kay used to take the whole bad blame show and argue over the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Knicks and somebody else.
Lakers.
And I'm in the whole show, so I'm aware of how he can get on a tangent and refuse to let go.
Right.
Well,
okay.
It's
thank you for taking my call.
Al, hey,
listen,
nothing snide intended about the Gamecocks. I just like to, needle every once in a while. I needle both sides. I'm an equal opportunity offender.
And you don't have to apologize for being right.
Well, that's true.
I don't. Thank you, pal.
Well, I didn't say anything that was not factual.
Yeah, but then again,
you made light of the Outback Bowl trophies.
If you think about
it, you said they could take the Outback Bowl trophies and put
them in the Hall of Fame
in the new place, and then you started laughing, and then you didn't realize that they had 4 of them.
That's fine.
So I think that you need to.
They can maybe have a whole Outback Bowl room.
Certainly they could,
and those wins are against some of these storied programs in American Ohio State and
Don't
Michigan.
paint me into a corner, gentlemen. I know exactly what I said.
What did the South Carolina? When's the last time Michigan beat South Carolina for that matter?
This upcoming basketball season.
Never have in football. Come to think of it, South Carolina won up there.
They had a chance to lose twice to Michigan in the basketball season this year.
I don't think Michigan has ever played.
Yeah,
did Michigan ever play in Columbia? Did they have a home and home, or was that just a trip up to Ann Arbor when George was a senior? Remember, they played Southern Cal, they played Michigan. I don't recall Michigan ever returning a trip to Columbia.
Let's go to Bulldog Bert, who's in Saluda. We have some rationalism about to come to us here right now. What's up, Bulldog?
Y'all make a lot about Georgia, but I'm not going to get into all that. But I was thinking about this Myrtle Beach Bowl. They need a sponsor, right?
We presume so, yes, Bulldog.
Yeah, well, y'all was talking about the Outback Bowl. Carolina won a blooming onion for that. And then the State Bowl, the Palmetto Bowl, used to be the hardest trophy.
Okay.
And they had the hardest winning combo. So there's got to be some fast food chain out there that wants the Myrtle Beach Bowl.
I would say give it to Bojangles. They have everything else in our state.
No, I got it. I got it. Chuck Reedy, our buddy Chuck Reedy has just opened a hamburger place down in Goose Creek called the Comeback Shack. So they can call it the Comeback Shack Bowl.
Yeah.
Chuck Reedy opened a burger joint?
And I hope y'all give away tickets to the Myrtle Beach Bowl. I'd love to go for the inaugural opening.
What's that airline that flies out of Myrtle Beach?
Listen,
Spirit Airlines Bowl.
There you go.
Hey,
Frontier Airlines.
Watch yourself. When things start going bad in Athens, you might be wishing for the day that the Bulldogs could get into the bowl.
Now that might be a thought, Phil. Georgia could play Ohio, and they're both Athens. They're both from Athens.
That's right. The Athens Bowl. That's right.
Bulldog Bert, always
all
offering,
right, BB. Thank you.
Always offering levity here on Sports Talk. See, there you go. You guys get me painted into a corner, man. I was just trying to say some factual information, and you all got to put me in a corner, like I don't know what the heck's going on. It's okay though. I'll remember that.
We give you the paint and we give you the brush. The rest is up to you.
I will remember that. We will hear from Brooks Koepka, as we promised going into the last segment, in the next segment on Sports Talk.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Well, thanks to a listener calling in, and also thanks to our perusal of the Gamecock media guide, we have found South Carolina's history against Michigan, which we were alluding to over the course of the last couple of segments.
Yeah, Gamecocks lost to them in 1985 in Columbia, 34-3. Back in 1980, up at the Big House, the Gamecocks won 17-14 with George Rogers leading the way. That was one of the biggest wins, of course, in Gamecock football history. I remember working in local radio in Columbia at that time. There must have been 10,000 Gamecock fans at the airport. My job was to go out to the airport and interview people or set up the equipment for the talent to interview people. And the place was absolutely filled to the gills.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about that whole thing is when they set up the schedule, they had no idea that George had a chance at the Heisman. But being an independent, they not only featured George in Los Angeles, where he had a good game, a solid game, even though they lost. Then they go to the Midwest and they play Michigan and upset Michigan. You couldn't ask for a better advertising campaign than to have a guy showcase himself in the Midwest and on the West Coast.
The game has changed so much. 1980, you look at the Gamecocks numbers, they rushed for 354 yards against Pacific, 430 against Wichita State, 322 against NC State, 425 against Duke. They hardly threw the ball. 424 yards against Cincinnati, 344 against the Citadel. Yeah, that was Gary Harper was the quarterback, and you know, he was basically used to turn and hand the ball to George, and George carried the mail more often than not.
Tony reminds us, tweeting us at SportsTalkSC on Twitter. Don't forget about the Gamecocks' 2 Capital One wins over Wisconsin and Nebraska. Put us in a bowl game against the Big Ten, and you can take it to the bank. But looking at their all-time record against the Big Ten, just 18-26. If you count last year's victory over Michigan in the
you got to consider
bowl.
too. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And South Carolina got off to such a bad start, and now South Carolina has been one of the better bowl teams in recent history.
Part of that, I should add, is against Maryland is 11-17. So that factors into it. So it doesn't necessarily count the traditional Big Ten schools. So a lot of that again is against Maryland.
Yeah. So South Carolina got off to a bad start in its history in bowl games. I think they lost their first 9, 8, first 8.
Right.
Before they won in '96 at the CarQuest Bowl. And then, you know, you look at their recent history, of course, Spurrier won his last 4 bowl games, and then they lost 1 and won 1. So they've won 5 of their last 6 bowl games.
So they would be 7-9 against the more traditional Big Ten teams outside of the Maryland Terrapins, who have since moved to the Big Ten since the last time South Carolina played them back in 1971.
Still doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah,
still doesn't feel right.
We talked about the Myrtle.
Yeah,
we talked about a potential postseason event coming to the state of South Carolina. One is leaving after this upcoming basketball season. The Colonial Athletic Conference, in its infinite wisdom, is moving the Colonial Athletic Association men's basketball tournament away from the 10,000-seat North Charleston Coliseum to a 4,200-seat practice facility. They'll be built in the District of Columbia and will be in Washington, D.C., where there, I believe, is guaranteed no actual presence of a CAA team there, at least in the District of Columbia, last I checked, other than Towson and William and Mary in adjacent states. Just saying, that seems incongruous to me.
Well, what the Southern,
not to sound jingoistic,
what the Southern Conference did years ago, and I think it worked, is remember, Corn, they asked, why were you moving to Asheville in a smaller arena? But every time you see their tournament on ESPN, it's packed because they want that alluring thing that you got a small arena, but it's packed rather than an echo chamber is not packed.
I just don't know who's going to go up to D.C. or who's going to watch that tournament in D.C. I really don't. Doesn't seem like it would be well attended at all. That's why they're putting it in a 4,200-seat arena. But who knows?
Well,
I just don't like when things leave our state.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm not sure how many people outside of Charleston noticed the CAA tournament was in Charleston the last couple of years. But as the Cougars have gotten better, as they have, and they project to be even better, they become more high profile. You know, I think this past tournament with them winning it, they had some big crowds there towards the end in their home facility, which is why you play it in a home facility. You hope the team is doing well and can attract the fans. Interesting that you bring that up, and we'll see what happens in March and just how many people support that event in what is basically, as you pointed out, a neutral site city.
Mm-hmm. We'll see how that works when it comes into fruition in 2020. That building again in D.C. still yet to be built.
Hey, so anybody watching soccer?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Brian, you watching? No, Pro, you watching?
No, I'm watching the CFL.
Yeah, I am too. I am really enjoying the CFL.
Are you really?
As something to real sports. I want to watch something that's true sport. You're
watching Canadian football over international
between
soccer.
Major League
Baseball.
Because
because in the Canadian League they still let you hit late.
Yes, that's real man's football there in Canada. But seriously, who won the World Cup?
It's like the first couple of days. Like who won in the World Cup?
Well, who won it? It's not over yet.
It's not even. It's like a month long.
If you ask Mexico, they'll tell you who won it.
We had the U.S. Open this past weekend. Brooks Koepka victorious. He did so with a 1-under par, 281 aggregate score to par. Here's a little bit of him after yesterday's victory.
I mean, it hasn't sunk in yet. To be honest with you, I think I don't want to say I didn't think I could do it, but I knew that it was going to be that much more difficult. And to finally do it, it's much more gratifying the second time. I can really appreciate how hard it is to win a major and to, win back-to-back is special. And, my second major is cool. Hopefully there will be, a few more.
It is Father's Day. I guess your dad was not in attendance last year, so just to have him here specifically on Father's Day and what that means to you and to him. And
2 years in a row, I haven't gotten him anything. And last year. So next year, I'm not going to get him anything either. It might bring some good luck. But, yeah, I mean, it's incredible to have my family here. My dad he loves golf, and to be here, he loves watching. It's incredible to share it with him this time. It'll be a little bit sweeter.
Could you speak to how this sort of affects your legacy going forward?
I hadn't really thought about my legacy, but that's pretty cool. I remember Rich Beam at the Open Championship was talking about how there's only 280 some guys that have ever won a major, and once you keep doing it, I mean, once you win the second one, he told me it goes down a lot lower. And would you say 80? Yeah, I think it's pretty incredible to be a two-time major champion. I think that's neat, man.
That's Brooks Koepka. A little bit from him. I think he's a worthy champion, and I think again he can be thrown into that little mix of Dustin Johnson and those kind of guys who are part of the new faces of the game.
Disappointed for DJ.
Yes,
had a great tournament going. We talked with George Friday night, and I suggested that he might back up, and George didn't think so. George thought Dustin had his hands around this thing pretty good.
I thought he did too.
It's golf, man. It's golf, and now we get ready for the British Open next month, and let's see what Tiger does over there. That's no less pressure than any of the other majors, but see if he can pick his game back up and get into contention for a major here. I still think that if he stays healthy and stays working on his game, he will get himself back. I mean, he's still got the does he not still have the talent? Maybe it's between the ears. I don't know.
It's all up here, I think. They'll go to Carnoustie, returning to the scene of the crime of Jean Van de Velde years past. Mike Martin back for a 40th season at Florida State, still trying to go for that elusive national championship.
Okay, and we've got 2 games tonight in Omaha. One is still on hold.
Yes, still a sunshine
we might
delay.
Have 3 games in Omaha. I mean, my goodness, how long a delay you?
Well, they're only supposed to play 2 today.
Right.
The elimination game and then the winners bracket game. But still a delay there between Oregon State and Washington.
Let's thank Mark Kingston and thank Joe Moglia for joining us tonight, and we will have some more good football stuff. I think Dan Radakovich is meeting with the media
on Wednesday.
So
we will have coverage of that. I'll probably never be able to get into an Outback Steakhouse ever again after today's show. But
I wouldn't think so.
Maybe I'll take my father there.
If he's still alive.